War changes everything, not just nations, but men, minds, and even the smallest habits of survival. In World War II, American soldiers discovered that sometimes the simplest tricks could save your life. And one of the strangest sights on those frozen battlefields was this: rifles wrapped in white cloth. It looked odd, like the soldiers were dressing their weapons for winter. But behind that white wrapping was a story of desperation, adaptation, and human ingenuity under fire. Snow had fallen thick across Europe. The Battle of the Bulge, Hitler's final, violent push against the Allies, had begun. Temperatures dropped to deadly lows. Visibility was poor. The world had turned white, but the soldiers' uniforms had not. American troops marched into snow wearing olive drab, dark green coats, dark helmets, dark rifles. Against the blinding white of the Ardennes, they might as well have carried signs saying, "Shoot here." German snipers, dressed in full snow camouflage, took advantage of it. Every reflection, every shadow, every patch of movement stood out like ink on paper. That's when American soldiers realized their biggest enemy wasn't just the cold or the bullets. It was visibility. They didn't have proper winter camouflage gear. It wasn't issued yet. So they improvised. They tore strips of bedsheets, bandages, even tent canvas, and wrapped them around their rifles, helmets, and shoulders. It started as a quick trick, but soon spread across entire units. A simple piece of cloth, tied tight around a gun barrel, could make the difference between life and death. You see, in snow, sunlight bounces off every surface. A rifle's barrel, if clean and oiled, gleams like a mirror. One flash of reflected light, and a sniper a few hundred yards away could take aim with deadly accuracy. But when wrapped in white cloth, that flash disappeared. The gun blended perfectly into the snow, its outline broken and dulled. The soldier behind it could now move unseen, his weapon invisible in the frozen landscape. It wasn't just camouflage. The white cloth also served practical purposes. In freezing weather, metal parts became so cold that touching them barehanded could tear skin. The wrapping acted like insulation, protecting fingers from frostbite and giving a better grip when the rifle was slick with ice. Some soldiers even said the cloth absorbed moisture, preventing snow from melting and refreezing around the moving parts of their guns. In other words, it wasn't just clever, it was essential. It was improvisation at its purest. There were no manuals telling them to do it. No orders from command. Just human instinct. Soldiers figuring out how to survive one more night in a place that wanted them dead. And what's remarkable is how this small act spread quietly, soldier to soldier, across the front lines. By late 1944, thousands of rifles across Europe were dressed in white, blending into the winter that had swallowed the continent. Imagine it. The silence of snow. The distant echo of artillery. Every movement had to be cautious. Every sound could give you away. In that environment, being seen was a death sentence. And so, American soldiers became phantoms, dark shapes turned pale by the cloth that covered them. Their rifles, once glinting in sunlight, now disappeared against the white horizon. This small act of improvisation also symbolized something deeper: adaptability. The ability to face conditions you weren't trained for and still find a way to fight. That's the spirit that defined the American soldier in World War II. They weren't always the best equipped. They didn't always have perfect intelligence or ideal conditions. But they learned, they adapted, and they survived. Eventually, this idea didn't go unnoticed. Commanders saw the effectiveness of the white wrapping and began developing official snow camouflage gear, white ponchos, snow covers, and winter rifle wraps. What began as a desperate field tactic became part of military strategy. It's a reminder that innovation in war often starts at the bottom, not from generals, but from the cold, hungry men on the ground who have no choice but to improvise. That white cloth represented more than concealment. It was the soldier's will to keep fighting. A small defiance against the elements. And a quiet message: I will not be an easy target. When we look at those photographs today, American rifles wrapped in white, soldiers ghost-like against the snow, it's easy to overlook the genius behind it. But that cloth was not just fabric. It was a shield, a disguise, and a lifeline. A symbol of human ingenuity in the darkest of times. In a war filled with tanks, planes, and bombs, sometimes the simplest things, a strip of white cloth, made the biggest difference. Every war has its great inventions and secret weapons, but often, survival depends not on what you're given, but on what you create. This was one of those moments when American soldiers turned scraps into strategy and cloth into camouflage. Thank you for watching. If you want to uncover more hidden tactics, forgotten survival tricks, and human stories from World War II, make sure to subscribe because history is full of small details that changed everything.